Aaron Cooper is a lifelong cattleman and a good man. I recently met Aaron in my pursuit of my own regenerative ranching project in Bastrop County, and he is an encyclopedia of knowledge on all things ag-related. Aaron has a PhD from Texas A&M University, which is focused on philosophy and animal breeding, and he runs several cattle-related businesses here in Central Texas. When you talk to Aaron, you immediately recognize his passion for the animals he oversees, and when you spend time with his family, you realize just how much of a family affair that really is. Aaron is an open book. He has a love for growing his cattle businesses, an even deeper love for his family, and most of all, a love for and a connection to his creator, which you'll hear multiple times in this conversation. Aaron's a special cat, and I hope you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. This is Aaron Cooper, owner of 33 Ventures and Cooper Family Akaushi. Good. Where did 33 Ventures come from? Have we talked about that?
Don't think so. I was 33 years old at the time. I know there's some biblical importance to the...
That's when Jesus was crucified at 33, right?
That's right. And I didn't want to call the company Cooper Consulting. I wanted it to have a little bit of a longer life to the brand. And I knew there'd be other business ventures that would come along that I could use that name to umbrella those into.
Yeah. That's like the parent company and everything else falls underneath.
Yeah. Management/parent company of some that everything flows through and is connected to. And yeah, there's a little mystique behind it as well. Yeah. I like this logo that's on the cap is still the logo, 10 years later, and it was made by the company that made our caps. And I told them kind of what I wanted, and they sent me a couple free proofs, and
you had to pick one.
I said that one there is pretty cool. Let's stick with that one.
Yeah, I like it. I like stuff like that doesn't have, there's a story behind it, but it's not obvious what the story is.
Yeah.
I like to dig into those where I can. How much of the work that you're doing now, you're all ag business. Mm-hmm. What percentage of your work is cultivation of your own genetics and your own herd versus consulting work? Is there a ratio that you're striving for, or is it ebb and flow?
It's probably half and half right now.
Half and half.
Where once it was 90-10 split with consulting, because it all started with consulting. We started gathering up genetics as we could.
Oh.
As I saw a good deal, but more importantly, the cows that I wanted to work with long term. And we were lucky to get into the market at a low point versus what the cattle are worth now when you go buy them.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege and I was just lucky to be able to work with nearly all the cattle beforehand, before we picked them out. So I'd known their production history and worked with them and whatnot. So I was very, it took me almost a week to pick eight head out of 400, even though I'd worked with them before. But I'm very rigorous in my selection of trying to account for everything that I can.
Yeah.
To avoid any mistakes down the road. And not all those cows turned out to be lily white and perfect in everything that they did. They still came with some limitations, and I had to breed around and still breed around. But we started back in 2016 buying those cattle, and we bought most of them as 8-year-olds, 6 to 8 year olds, and most of them are still alive today.
All mama cows?
Mama cows.
You didn't buy any bull stock at that point?
We bought a bull or two to kind of get us going.
Yeah.
But we've raised our bulls. I work with a family out in West Texas, the Bradens, that own Flying M Beef. It's a family-owned beef company that do Akaushi, Angus cross cattle. And, as a guy starting out with nothing, not much resources, I learned the best way to, use your friends, become partners, industry allies, try to have a network that you could rely on each other, not to make money off of each other or maximize the amount you could make, but rather to lean on each other to do good, fair business with each other now and for the foreseeable future, to help each other out.
Yeah.
What I always brought to the table was consulting and the knowledge of the pedigrees, past performance of the cattle, and what I had, in my mind as far as mating the cattle moving forward. And other people, when we would do allied partnerships or business partnerships, business relationships would bring forth the capital, the land, things that that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Still don't have a lot
Man,
of.
it's something fairly unique to the cattle business that I've noticed just in the couple of years I've been paying attention to it, is that people that you would consider to be competitors, like in any other industry, if you have another, let's say IT business, the work that I'm in, if we have another IT business in Austin, we're not calling them for a hand every now and again. Like the competitiveness there sort of keeps you from interacting with each other. But in the cow business, it doesn't seem to be that way. Like there's plenty of producers that have really good reciprocal relationships with each other, even though they're competitors. What's that about? Why is there more camaraderie in that industry than there seems to be in others?
Well, you got to. There's only so much that a guy has when they start out. The guys that are out cowboying or starting their businesses, cattle or otherwise, are probably not inheriting much and don't start out with much, but they've got a work ethic, initiative, and a dream.
Yeah.
And those first two help the third one exist.
Right.
And that's what they bring to the table. And they don't only have 8 to 5 jobs. They've got gigs on the side and on the weekends and whatnot. And, you lean on older folks for their advice. And also, you help them out, maybe a retired person or an older guy.
Yeah.
He's going to let you borrow that squeeze chute or borrow his tractor or something like that. And you just try to do as much of that cultivation as you can.
Yeah.
But I think at the core, now that I'm kind of in that mid-range where I'm not quite just starting out, but I'm definitely not at retirement age and starting to see the bigger picture of things. And from a 30,000 foot view is, I think we just lean on, that commandment of loving your neighbor like yourself.
Yeah.
We know what it's like to start out and how tough it is. My niece and nephew are going through the same thing right now.
Getting it going.
Trying to get it going, trying to start their businesses, start their families.
Yeah.
And I talked to my wife, Megan, recently about trying to help my niece, buy that professional camera that she's been saving up for so that she can go out on her own and do more freelance photography because she's found something that she likes to do.
Yeah.
And she's got the work ethic and the accountability and all that to carry her a long way. And we need photography at our place. That's one thing that we're lacking on.
Mm.
So if we can help her get started and help us get started at the same time and love on her a little bit, she's going to love on us with some good pictures.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. How old is she?
25-ish.
Okay. So something we touched on earlier, I told you there was a couple things we touched on that I didn't dig into because I wanted to wait until we were in here. But you had talked about how like you kind of knew you wanted to do this from an early age. What happens in a kid's life that makes him want to go into ag business as a way to make a living? Where did that start with you?
Oh, I don't know.
Can you pinpoint it? Or is it like a conglomeration of things?
It's just all even though I was born and raised for the first couple of years of my life in town, we were always going out of town for our recreation, or my dad was day working cattle on the weekends as a second job, or trying to gather up money so that they could buy a spread outside of town to raise their family on. And so I've always just been around cattle and horses and ranch country, even though we didn't have much growing up. Blessed to say now that I've grazed cattle on over 2,000 acres, which was a pipe dream growing up. But, I lean on those that were loving me that are now passed, and previous business partner, John Myers, and fortunate to lease his ranch from his sons, run cattle out in West Texas, but then also have a place to run cattle in Giddings, Texas, east of Austin.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I'd be very good at anything else, honestly. I'm not a good salesman. I'm not good at marketing. I'm
podcasting.
I'm not good at podcasting or promoting myself or anything like that. So taking care of some of God's creations is something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's been another interesting thing of getting to know cattlemen. Just people that have done farm and ranch stuff their entire lifetimes are very, you can't characterize an entire population of people one way, but they seem to be less likely to want to promote themselves and talk about what they've done and their accomplishments. There's a little more humility sort of baked into that line of work, probably because it forces you to be humble.
Yeah, it does. If you don't start out with a lot, you set your sights on having something. And once you have something, you're probably still too young to not understand being humble and having a little too much pride. And battle with that on a daily basis still.
Yeah.
But I know now that those that are exalted will be humbled, and those that are humble themselves will be exalted.
That's the way it tends to work, huh?
I was very proud of what I'd accomplished, and you just got to know my story growing up. I didn't even graduate in the top half of my high school class growing up out of 60 kids. And I barely, I made some B's through junior college, but mainly C's. And I didn't take that part of my life serious till I got to Texas A&M.
Huh.
I got to study in the animal science courses and study more about what I had a passion for. And boy, like a needle finds a groove, I was on it.
That was it.
What I understand now is that it was obvious it wasn't my strength of academics that carried me through there, but it was passion driven by the Lord and fueled by the Lord. And I think when you get to that point where you can see a bigger picture on things, when that realization, you see where you are and what you've been blessed with and how it could have gone differently.
Yeah.
You get humble. You humble yourself before your family and before Christ and before the animals you take care of. And
how old were you when that transition happened for you of like not taking things very seriously at all to now all of a sudden seeing like, oh, this is like you said, the groove? What age were you when that happened?
Recently.
Like last year, last 5 years?
Since we got in contact with each other.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the catalyst? Do you know?
Realizing my way doesn't work. And I told you, don't get me emotional. My way doesn't work. I think way too short term and not long term. And my way should have ended up with me digging a hole for a living or mowing grass or something that's not my passion. That I would feel like I, wasted talent. But, when you do hit rock bottom, you find a real firm foundation to stand up with. You look up and there he is. And if you'll let kingdom come, you'll see it all around you. And that's what makes me emotional multiple times a day.
Really?
Because I was telling my neighbor, the past county judge of our county, he's doing some shredding for me out at the house. And we pulled up to the barn. He said, man, what a place. I said, you're telling me. I said, Judge, if I had told you that I had dreams of this place when I was a kid in West Texas, dribbling basketball on rocks and running into cactus and digging that stuff out of your foot, just out playing, in that semi-arid place, that I was dreaming about a place with green pastures and big trees and a big silver-colored barn with traps out back that you could have show cattle and bring people on your place and just, showcase what you've got going on and the genetic selection you've been working on and what you're producing. I had those thoughts. And when I just see that, let God take the lead and show me what he's going to show me, I see it all around me. And that's what humbles me.
Is it hard for you to grab a hold of that kind of stuff and see it as real? Like for me, you and I spent the morning on our place. I have multiple occasions a week where I stop and I'm like, this doesn't feel like I don't deserve to be here. I don't know how I got here. It doesn't feel like a thing that'll last. It's like you're constantly looking around the corner for the person that's going to come and be like, how did you get here? You're not supposed to be here. Let's go back where you belong.
Right.
Does that happen to you at all?
I find myself blown away or just taken back, letting reality sink in that, hey, you asked for it, here it is. Whether it be to sit and admire or to sit there and look at the the budget and realize, man, this owning something is expensive and operating something is expensive. And, you've got to take care of what you've been blessed with. And, no, I think it's just a blessing. And, yeah, I find affinity in the out in the outside of town and, out by yourself.
Yeah.
Moses found it that way. Jesus found divinity in the wilderness. I think there is something to that. I think that, it's to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Mm.
I realize my version of life is not everybody's. So my preferences aren't necessarily going to apply to everybody's preferences or what's good for them or what have you. But being somebody that's lived in the country and then lived a lot of my life in town, like where our house was in Austin was on a hill up over one of the busiest intersections in Texas. This is like through the Wyandotte Hill.
Mm.
And so when you're in your backyard and there's just nothing but traffic noise for 10 years, you kind of get accustomed to it. And, ambulances go by and you'll notice it, but otherwise it's just sort of background noise.
Mm-hmm.
But then we would go out to the country and spend even a day out in the woods somewhere where it's quiet. And you realize like, man, I can breathe easier. There's something different to peace and quiet that you just don't get when you're in town.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not for everybody, but certainly for me, it's where I seem to be the most at peace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there is something to it, getting outside and for me, it's not necessarily, chainsawing trees and chopping wood. It's, or building fence or any of the back-breaking stuff, but it involves the cattle, lugging feed sacks around or throwing hay bales and stuff. I mean, it's, we get a little semi CrossFit workout almost every morning.
Yeah.
And, it's good for you. I'm glad that I kind of hated it and wished that we had more money to buy more machinery to avoid a lot of the stuff that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. But, I get to eat a little bit more freely at times. And, since I'm burning some more calories.
That's right. You feel good about the big meal at the end of the day.
That's right.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before and I've probably mentioned it on the podcast before, but I've noticed that the best metaphor I've found when I'm working my day job and I'm sitting at a computer for weeks on end, my hands kind of shrink where my wedding ring doesn't fit very well. But when I'm out working with my hands, it's like my fingers build up a little bit where my wedding ring fits better. And it just so happens that my own demeanor is affected in the exact same way when I'm sitting at a screen for a week or two at a time. I'm not a super nice guy to be around. I'm not real well sorted out. I'm more of a beast of burden. I've got to go do things and burn calories and actually put myself through something, or I just don't feel like I've accomplished anything.
Yeah.
I have to build things with my hands or I don't feel like I've done anything.
Yeah.
You probably have a little bit of that too, huh?
A little bit. I wish I was more skillful in building things than what I am. It'd save us some money. But, yeah, my day is filled up with helping producers on the phone or on emails, text messages, or it comes in waves.
Sure.
And when there's an off wave where I'm focused more on our cattle or what we've got going on at home or West Texas, I can kind of disengage because I don't only have to, I don't really know every hair on the body of my cattle. I'm talking pedigree and performance history and future stuff that we're trying to do with them, but a couple of herds.
Yeah.
And so, I really have to engage with folks to, look at their program and focus on where we're going. But it's good to disengage from all of that and just focus on my own stuff, and be able to, dream of where we're going and what we're trying to do with that herd. Yeah.
It's worth noting, just because you won't brag on yourself, this isn't something you've done like as a hobby. Like you went to school for this. You've got I wrote this down because I knew I would forget it. You have a PhD. How many people call you Dr. Cooper?
Not many.
Can I call you Dr. Cooper?
You can. It's up to you.
They're going to embarrass you. But you have a doctor of philosophy in animal breeding.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you pick that path?
Well, it was just the cattle breeding side. And so any type of animal, livestock breeding, horse breeding, even shrimp, poultry, swine. There's professional breeders that are with these large outfits, these large, corporate size breeding farms and family farms as well. Don't get me wrong. Some are, the ones that are large enough to have a staff like geneticists or statisticians, but, that are trained in animal breeding and genetics and the statistics that go along with them in terms of selection theories and understand either developing selection indices or understanding if a breed association has numbers that they're putting out on animals, how to interpret them and what that means, and make breeding programs based off of that stuff. But so started out as animal science, livestock judging really carried me through all of that. And then while going to school, I took one course at Texas A&M University. It was Animal Science 305 with Dr. Jim Sanders. That it was like, it just woke up something inside of me that was like, that stuff I'm very interested in. And he had such a unique way of teaching it that was a little bit more military style and demanded you to be on the edge of your seat, have studied your notes prior, and be ready to go because he's going to call on someone about something that you're responsible for. And I loved it because the content made me be like that anyway. And went and talked with him afterwards or through the course and afterwards. And the opportunity to be a livestock judging coach at other universities came about as a graduate student. And so I landed on the University of Nebraska. They had an opening and I could be a graduate student there under one of the most highly authored animal breeder that there is in terms of peer-reviewed journal articles with Dale Van Vleck. And his major professor, the one who mentored him through Cornell, was the one that wrote all of these indices. It made it possible through the mixed model equations that he came up. So I got to learn firsthand of a lot of the stuff that we use today. And
from the people who pioneered
it, and had to use old style large computers and use punch cards to feed in the data that they needed to, where had keyboards and we could key it in, but we learned how to do it programming, writing our own stuff and then running it on data sets as during classwork. So animal breeding and genetics is heavily statistic and very algebraic, a lot of matrix algebra. And so, jokes on me. I thought I would have flunked out of every one of those courses, but somehow, some way I found a way to get through there and really catch a stride with some of that stuff. I wasn't trained as much in genomics, hardly at all, through graduate school, mainly the applied animal breeding side of it. It was after which, when I left, when I started my consulting company in 2016, that I started learning the molecular side of the genetics and genomics and how those technologies are impacting, today.
So effectively what you're doing, to somebody that doesn't understand anything of what you just said, you are taking a herd of animals and you are selecting the characteristics that you're trying to get more of and the characteristics you're trying to get less of in this case, cow herd.
That's right.
And you're selectively breeding the cows that have the characteristics you're looking for to a bull that has the characteristics that you're looking for, and you're just watching the result over the course of time. Right.
And it sounds a little factory farming, just hearing you say that out loud. So the traits that we're looking for are docility and temperament, good tempered cattle versus high-headed and nervous type cattle. We're looking for cattle that are efficient with the forages and the grains, the feedstuffs that are put in front of them, rather than being inefficient, and good mothers versus mothers that don't have that maternal ability or that intuition to want to claim a calf and raise it well, take care of it. So we want productivity through sustainable traits, calving ease, good temperament, production efficiency without maximizing traits, but saying, defining optimum ranges of growth and carcass traits and things like that. So, with what I do it's a high marbled breed of cattle that came out of Japan. There's black Wagyu and red Wagyu. the red wagyu we call akuishi, and that's my specialty. Yeah, after grad school in animal breeding and genetics, it was 2011, and we were, the drought had hit right then. The economy in Texas has finally been hit by the global economic collapse of 2008. So I graduated in 2011. There was nothing really out there for a specialized, educated animal breeder. And I really wanted to be in industry all along, but I had to go to academia. There was some openings at colleges available. So I went that route and went to Texas A&M University Commerce. That's now East Texas A&M University, and was on staff there for 2 years. And, research and scholarly activity is not my forte. I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. But I'm a hands-on cattle guy. I miss, the people are great and enjoy the professional development that I gained from that activity. But I was made to be with the animals and try to improve and make what we have better by what I've been, educated in and what I had a little bit of a knack for. So
yeah, something that I wanted to talk about that's along those lines. You had mentioned before some mentors that you had when you were younger. Mentorship and professional development is very, very important, but there is a point at which it can be counterproductive. Like if you dub somebody your mentor and then you find out like, oh, I kind of disagree with this person on this one core component of their professional life. Knowing when to not take the advice of a mentor it's a big deal too. And what you find in cattleman circles is that they have very deeply held, firmly held opinions based on, well, this is the way my granddaddy did it. This is the way my daddy did it. I'm doing it the same way. And like, it's working. Look at my cows. Like, you can come to blows on cattle theory with people.
Yeah.
How do you avoid it?
You don't.
You don't.
No, you don't. I was lucky to be educated by a couple guys that, showed you how to critically think for yourself through situations and, look through a journal article and, constructively critique that and say, well, this is what I would have done differently, or this is the limitation to this study, or these data that can't just be, applied to every situation. It's not like this every time. Maybe it's not repeatable or whatnot. So yeah, you and I have talked about, our local communities for where we live at and the mainstream way of doing it that locally is thought as the more progressive way of doing it. And it's a battle that many cattlemen take on that want to do a little bit more of a regenerative approach to things, make their land better, try to get more production without putting chemicals or industry synthetics on their property. And especially when you see the results for yourself. I was lucky to grow up in West Texas, to where anything that grew besides a mesquite tree and a prickly pear cactus, we were in favor of. No matter if it's a weed or thistle or what, because it's better to have something growing there than nothing at all, because it's just going to turn to desert after that if you just leave it bare.
Where are you from originally?
Post, Texas.
Post. I know Post. Yeah.
So used to be the only stoplight between Fort Worth and Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah. That used to be our breakfast stop on the way to Southern Colorado.
Okay.
There's a big park that had we call it a round and around slide. It had the big twisty slide in it. We stopped every summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Post, Texas.
I'm glad to see that they kept that park up and the pool and everything.
Yeah.
The little burger shop right adjacent to it, Holly's. I'd say the majority of my meals growing up through school, grade
there
school and whatnot, were there.
Do you still go back?
When I go back through there, I stop at Holly's and
you do
get something
just for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah, we don't have much family living there anymore, but yeah.
There's an old smokehouse there too that has jerky that's unlike any jerky you get
all
anywhere.
the highlights
Dude,
of
I know
Texas.
Post. I know Post.
Oh yeah, world famous Jackson.
Yeah.
Smoke jerky strips. Yeah, those are very good.
If you call it jerky, it's like a thick slab that
it's like tenderloin.
Yeah.
Tenderloin or hanging tenders, or I don't know. I guess you could do bottom sirloins or something like that. I mean, but these chunks of meat that are long, it's like biltong almost over in South Africa. But this stuff's the best I've ever tasted out of my hometown.
Yeah. It is really, it's unique.
It is.
It's something special. If you're
I was
ever in
glad to
post.
see the Jacksons when Bo Jackson was ready to pass that business on that a guy I went to school with.
Is that where the Jackson name came from?
Yeah, Bo
No
Jackson.
kidding.
Not the Bo Jackson, but a guy
Different
named
Bo Jackson.
Yep.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Well, you were talking about, before we got on that tangent, the sort of limiting your inputs, doing things more regeneratively. That's not a super well adopted theory, I've found, at least around Central Texas. It's like all the cattlemen that I'm talking to, there's little components of it that they'll say, oh yeah, that's probably a good idea, but you're just never going to make it work that way.
Yeah.
Do you get that a lot too?
The actual ideas themselves, or the tangible thing I'm going to do, yes. However, the term regenerative or sustainability is a very popular term. That you see them everywhere. We've almost, hate to say it, but bastardized these terms, because you see some of these round tables and things that are getting put together in our industry for sustainability and regenerative efforts, and there might be a couple or a fraction of them that do at their core know what regenerative or sustainable is. And then you fill in the rest with, large corporate, large pharma, large producers that, bend at the knee to those large outfits. And are always going to do it the way they're doing it. They're just complying right now to make things look better.
Yeah. So they can put that moniker on the thing.
Sure.
Like the term organic.
Sure. You either do something or you keep quiet. And so it's tough to go against the grain and be outspoken about it. So you see guys maybe not yelling at the top of their lungs and preaching to everybody about what they're doing. They're just kind of doing it on their own and watching improvement come from within. But yeah, Mike, I don't necessarily want to spray something toxic that kills plants on my property. Weeds are an issue. Dove weeds, they can just take you over to where it just, chokes out all of your grass. And then you have more of a sterile, lifeless type of environment. And that's not what you want. But, we talked about there's mechanical options that you can do with shredding. There's some grazing patterns. You can put limestone, calcium lime down on your property to try to encourage grass growth versus weed growth. I call that regenerative. You're trying to regenerate and make something better, more full of life than what it was. To me, if there's a certain type of grass growing in an area, aka Bahia grass in our area, that tends to be invasive and really drown out and choke out the Bermuda grass, that's not looked favorably upon. So they, it's year after year of spraying poison on the Bahia grass, trying to choke it out so that you can let a weaker and improved introduced grass run its course. And I'm under the assumption of whatever's going to grow the best there, let that have that stronghold and try to improve upon it. Let's try to put some, if it's choking everything else out, let's try to put some seeds in there it can't choke out, and let's just at least try.
Right.
And
especially if the animals eat it.
Yeah.
If they're not eating it, it's a little different. But if they're eating the plant, they're obviously eating it because there's something in it that they want or they need. So might as well have that species there and let it grow where it grows well.
Yeah. And so it's, as you know, in our neck of the woods where we have our places at and run cattle at, it's a very hay crop oriented mindset to where we want one type of a monoculture, a monospecies of grass, not a weed in sight, and not another stem of another species of grass in sight. And that's the best to make hay. That's the best to, et cetera. Well, that's one school of thought, and that's the mainstream school of thought. But in my mind, I just don't believe that a monoculture is the thing that you should have. I don't think the high school biology teachers or the professors at the universities, I don't remember in a biology course ever getting taught that one species is the best and it should just dominate and populate everything. That you should have a tier and a hierarchy and a cycles of grasses throughout the seasons. And I don't think weeds are as bad as what they're made out to be.
Mm-hmm.
But, we'd rather have weed growing on something than nothing, but we'd rather have grass than growing. And a diversity of grass, a diversity of life, clover, legumes, native grasses, and let Mother Nature decide what she wants to grow in abundance there. I also don't believe that God really wants us to have that viewpoint either. And and that's why I don't say these things out loud to people that I live around.
Yeah, say more about that, because I think we probably agree on this, but
yeah, I don't see it anywhere in the Bible or anything that Jesus spoke about that says that you should only favor one type of thing or not try to give life to all that you can. And there are some thorny plants that are referred to in the Bible that you need to avoid and try to cut out. But there are fruitful things in the Bible and good seeds that you can sow that may not come about immediately, but might come later in life. And we see, like you're saying on your property, there's native seeds that are coming out. You just needed to maybe cultivate or not cultivate, but just take care of a piece of property and let them, if they're going to have a chance to do something, do it. And they came about unexpectedly. But diversity. Yeah, I think we should love all and endure, because we're going to endure quite a bit of things. And it's, you look down your church pew and tell me you see the same kind of person, or the same color, the same look, or the same dress, or whatever. There's diversity there. So, there's case in point number one in my mind. But I think in the sciences behind it, multiple cultural species, biodiversity is healthy for the soil, because it's healthy for everything in it.
Yeah.
Because your earthworms, your microorganisms, everything that makes the mycelium, everything that makes it all a healthy environment underground doesn't need just one thing to feed on. Now, your grass can feed on anhydrous ammonium or nitrate, that you can put out on the ground, fertilizer, aka fertilizer. Yeah, it'll feed right on that and get going. But that doesn't mean everything else underground is going to feed on it. In fact, it can kill a lot of things underground.
Right.
So we want to harness all the life that we can, because the more life you see, the more life you see. Life begets more life.
Yeah. That's the one principle that really grabbed me. I told you earlier I was raised on a cattle farm and ended up with zero interest in cattle farming at the end of it. I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to the operation back then. It just didn't seem like a thing that I wanted to do. But the thing that really sort of caught me between the eyes about the regenerative principles is that when you're looking at an operation that is built conventionally, it's all about what to kill, what to poison, what to spray for. You're trying to knock things back constantly. Whereas this philosophy is built around creating an environment, or helping facilitate an environment where more life can abound. And that when you set up that environment where the soil microbiome can heal from all the stuff you've been doing to it for generations, then you get little life that comes in to feed on that life. And then you get a little bit bigger life that feeds on that life. And then it sort of builds over the course of time. But it's not something that can be done quickly.
Yeah. No, it takes time. Healing and rehabilitation, it just takes time.
Yeah. There's so many analogies to life that you find in a cattle business or a farming operation that I know you can find them elsewhere, but man, they're right in your face when you're out with the animals every day, or you're out in the garden every day. Like the best things in your life, family, your career, you're building this business enterprise. If they're going to be healthy and they're going to be lasting, they take a long time to do. You're not going to fail, quickly. You're not going to succeed quickly. It's going to be a thing that you're just constantly showing up for and adding layers of paint to it every day, year over year over year. And then all of a sudden you see like, oh, it's working. It's different.
Yeah.
The most meaningful things seem to have that common thread.
Yeah. You can choose an easy path in life sometimes, and you can choose a hard path. And sometimes the harder things that are things worth having are just a little harder to acquire. And why not shoot for the moon?
Yeah.
What we're doing in that regenerative approach is it's not easy. You can't just go buy it off the shelf. You got to harness it within to go apply it outside.
Mm.
And if you don't have it in your mind and you're not bought in your mind, it's like you're saying, you're kind of pissing in the wind.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to go backwards. And it's easier just go buy products, have someone come out and apply them, and then watch a pretty grass grow and it look good, and watch it only be grass and the weeds wither away. Again, I'm not saying I'm not an advocate for weeds, but I'm an advocate for abundance of life, diversity.
Yeah.
And even though we raise only one breed of cattle, and we raise it in a nucleus herd type manner, which is not really talked about. There's seed stock production that provides genetics for other breeders and commercial producers to use. And then, that represents the largest amount of the genetic suppliers. But then there's a 1%, 2% faction of the breeders that are kind of off to their side, that kind of do their own thing, that don't sample everybody's genetics and bring stuff in, that have their blinders on like a racehorse, and have a different view for what they're doing, whether they're, in the landscape ornamental business or horse business or whatever business they're in. There's just breeders. It could be a corn breeder, whatever, that they're at the very top, and call them the nucleus herds, nucleus populations. And they're bred to a higher standard, a more rigorous selection process, where if they don't meet an exceptional level on most things, then they're sold to be commercialized or repurposed into, in our case, carcasses for consumers. And so in our herd, it's on the maternal side, where if the females don't pass go on their first parturition, their first birth, and don't meet my rigid specification there, then they either get sold, they pretty much get sold as a carcass. I mean, we pull them in, fatten them up, and do it that way. And
right.
You can do it with grass or grain. But if they are raising a calf and doing a sufficient job at it, then you leave you want to harbor that and just and not interrupt that. But eventually she'll go be repurposed for something else. But even though I'm that focused on some things with what we're doing, it's diversity is good. And you can get too caught up in your own stuff or your own lines, and you need to outcross. You need to bring in something that production-wise fits, your framework, your optimum levels that you're looking at, but of a different, genetic base, or more unrelated to what you're doing. They can be of the same ancestry, but have just been bred differently up to this point. And so you have different animals in your pedigree, but they're somewhat related. So you feel more confident moving forward that you don't get yourself into homozygous recessives or abnormalities and things of that nature. And so you want to do it in a responsible manner. But yeah, diversity is still important in that regard. And when I take those blinders off and go consult with other breeders who, probably don't have any of my genetics, maybe a sample to a couple of the consulting clients that I have, but hardly any. It's more of what's out on the market and within the industry of what, so I put, a different ball cap on per se on, how I'm able to help them and what's available to them.
You kind of get a unique perspective doing the consulting work, because you get to go on other people's properties and see how they're doing things. And like you said, change hats a little bit and go, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing that? Oh, that's kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
You had any like firmly held opinions that were changed by just seeing something somewhere else that you felt like would work?
A lot in the early days, because I was still learning the breed. I just had more experience than other people out there.
Yeah.
When I left academia and went into industry, I was very fortunate to find some buddies of mine that run a company called Heartbrand Beef, south of Austin, or southeast of Austin, between Bastrop and Gonzales, and they've got a meat program, they have the founding herd of Akaushi, and they have thousands of full-blood Akaushi cattle. So I was baptized by fire, if you will, on, just being consumed with that breed that I'd never worked with before. And I had Japanese names. The animals that came over from Japan had Japanese names. And, it wasn't until my second year there that I kind of dug more into that and understood a little bit more of how they came over and which ones came over and why they selected those and whatnot. But I knew enough to go out on my own to start a consulting company and help other people either refine what they had or get started into the breed, and whether it be meat programs or breeding herds. And I learned a lot by getting to see how other people did it and see how genetics worked in different environments. And I learned a lot. I was like drinking from a water hose still, or a fire hose still. Even though I was the consultant, the hired man coming in to refine or to build, I was still learning so much. And I got to travel the world doing it. It was awesome, honestly. And got to see a lot of things, good and bad.
Do you think you'll do more of it as you progress, as your family grows up? Like, do you want to do more of the consulting gig, or are you going to trend more and more the other direction?
Yeah, we'll be trending the other way. Yeah, it'll, I have a more select group of clients nowadays. Back in the early days, I said no to no one.
Yeah.
And that I was exposed to the goods and bads of business and the goods and bads of, the people and the evils of this world, and got to see poverty at levels I'd never seen it before in some places that I wish I could have taken my kids there to see that, to just give them that idea of, God, we're so lucky to live where we are and do what we do. But it's, I feel like our future is in our own cattle, in our own beef. And we've been very lucky to get where we are with that. But I'll always, if I'm able to consult and travel some to help others, I'll try to. Talking about leaning on other professionals in your business and development and learning as you go. When I would be able to get in front of these landowners, these cattle owners, they had resources, and they'd either earned it from another business that came from, and they're in a retirement mode and sold the business, or, it was old money. Either way, I learned probably more from them while I was there consulting for them than they learned from me. And I was just talking nonstop. But when I was not talking and answering their questions, I was really observing, and I'm an observational scientist. I learn a lot through just observing and picking up and seeing repetitiveness to it and habits and whatnot. And it's the wealth management side of people with money that I realized, and how they and good and bad, how they treat their employees and people in general and whatnot. The things that we've all heard about before with reading the room and reading people. But they were so successful. I respected them probably as much as they respected me, that I want to know, how did they get so darn successful? Was it through good business? Was it through, greed? What was it for? How did they get it? And there was a couple of clients that I still, even though I'm not consulting for them, or do some consulting for them, with maybe like breeding decisions once a year or something like that, or identifying genetics in America to get to them that are new and improved, but on a lighter scale with them. I still keep in contact with them. They're just such good humans that I learned so much from. And it all goes back to Christ. Those people that really, that I learned a lot from, boy, they were close with Christ.
Common thread among them. I
felt that. And I felt God put me at their dinner table at that moment to witness that.
Yeah.
To see how they live their life, to see how they treated other people, and to see how God blessed them. Not to get wealthy in a money type of way. At the time that was on the front of my mind. How did they get to what they had? But what I was learning retrospectively, what I know now, is I was watching for all of God's blessings that He was bestowing upon whomever it was. And it's those conversations I had with those people, whether it be at that dinner table or afar on a Zoom call or a WhatsApp message, uh, that give me hope sometimes, or give me, business advice, or talk me out of taking on equity partners, and saying, don't let anybody hijack your company.
Mm.
You know what you want to do, and you'll never get it back, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so some of that advice I still lean on today, and I'm sure glad I got to know who I knew at the time. But
You say you still keep in touch with some of those people too?
Yeah.
That's when you're in your 20s, and like a lot of my 30s, you're in this mode of trying to expand your network as fast as possible. So that's why consulting is great in your 20s and 30s, because you're just going to, like you said, a perma yes. Yeah, I'll take on that job.
You sleep fast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You take on as much as you can. And at some point in meeting all those people, particularly if you're meeting affluent people, you start to realize like they're not all happy with where they've ended up in life.
Right.
There's factions within those groups of people that, boy, you wouldn't want to sit in a room with for very long. They're kind of miserable people to be around. Mm-hmm. And then you find people that are successful by what your definition of the term successful would be, which is partially financial's a piece of it. Being able to make your ends meet obviously is important, but there's a different level of success you see in certain kinds of people where their relationships with their families are intact, where the people that you talk to that know them have a very common experience with them that's positive. Those are the ones to grab a hold of and really learn from a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I've got some mentors in my life like that too.
Yeah, you get to where you stand on the shoulders of a lot of people.
Yeah, certainly. Talk about the not so great days of being a cattleman. That's where our day started today was, hey, how's it been? Oh, it's been a tough couple days, I think is how you put it.
Yeah, been in the trenches for for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's good days and bad days, but the good days far outnumber the bad days. But there's certain things that you go through that are a little bit more demoralizing. And we work with a breed of cattle that are very fertile at an early age. And if you don't separate those young ladies from their brothers or young men, or even some of the older bulls within the herd, or maybe a bull jumps the fence or whatnot, they can get pregnant at a young age. So young that they're 7 months of age. They're not even weaned from their mother yet. And so you find them calving, or, you see that they're too far along bred to, you've just got to support that pregnancy from that point forward. I don't like doing abortions on even cattle. Our cattle are calving ease. Our herd of cattle, the genetics we've selected for, have been calving ease, and I've done that on purpose with intent to avoid calving problems, because that's a crucial part of the developed heifer as she's getting in her maternal career started, and of course the baby calf. So I want to see them out. However, there's only so much capacity and area that a baby calf can fit through that pelvic canal of the heifer. So they're underdeveloped the younger they are. And so we only have a couple a year, but they'll slip through the cracks, and you'll have an 18-month, 20-month, 21-month-old heifer calving in, just a 1, 2, 3 a year, something like that. Some years we have none. And we've had 4 this year. The first 3, we saved the calf. All 4 of the mothers are alive, and 3 of them are doing perfectly fine. 2 of them will be, head to the meat side of the program. And they're not even, 2 of those were not even ours. They were just some of my clients. They'll head to their meat program within their program. But then yesterday we had this 15-month-old heifer that was calving. And we'd been watching her and waiting and watching and waiting. And she'd shown signs that she was going into labor. So we got her up and analyzed the situation and said, this cookie's going to be a little bit tougher to crack than what we have the capabilities on the farm. So we use a local vet and took her to his place, to their veterinary clinic. And The calf, they were able to get it out, but it was through the side, not out the back. So she had a cesarean C-section out the side, and she's doing fine. The calf was a stillborn. And so unfortunately you lost the calf. And, 5 years ago, the value of the calf at a local auction was a fraction of what it is today, a couple $100. Now it's, $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they're worth a lot more, but regardless, you want that calf to make it and make it for that heifer too, because it's healthier for her to go through a lactation cycle, whether it's too early in life or not, but make her become a mother. And then you rest her and don't breed her for the next season or two and let her catch back up. Even with this C-section, we'll let her, she's a very nice heifer. We'll let her catch, when she gets to about 20 months of age, I want to go in and feel of her udder, her pelvic canal and see if it's a misshape or size thing. And if she passes that, then I'll let her develop for a little bit longer. Then she can become a mother again later in life.
Yeah.
It's a tough part of the gig, whether, any life that you lose. But thank God it's not a child.
Yeah. You're faced with that loss a little bit more frequently as a farmer, as a cattleman.
Yeah.
You kind of get your head around things not going your way all the time because you're just faced with it so frequently.
Yeah, and a plant doesn't have a soul to it. I mean, plants you can see, can think, and things like that, but not a soul like a bovine and equine can have, and dogs, and so it's part of it. But the Lord giveth and taketh away, and they're not all going to turn out. We want them to calve at 24 months of age for their first calf, where we're putting a little pressure on them to calve earlier than 30 months or 36 months, but it's common to calve in the other breeds within our industry at 24 months of age. Some producers will let them calve a little bit later, but that doesn't mean they're going to have any easier calving. So we want to select them to have calves properly on their own and unassisted at a 24 months of age. Just like when we're harvesting our fat steers and fat heifers in our beef program, most of them are harvested at 30 months, 36 months. However, we put a time constraint of 24 months, knowing that they're not, it's not the maximum output that we could have gotten from the animal, but it's an age constant basis that we're harvesting at that's still leading the industry in terms of trying to prove early marbling in the animals as well as early maternal ability in the animals. So that's where our herd is, the direction and the vision is for early marbling, early maturity, early maternal ability, and doing a very good job at that, not just, crossing the finish line, but, leading the industry in some of those fashions. It's part of it, but, you lean on the Lord a lot. When you lose a baby calf, you can go look at another set of baby calves, and it can get from your mind pretty quickly.
Bring you out of it.
Yeah. So that's one of the, they're kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, where you've got those bad days that are demoralizing, and you say, geez, it's, you kind of lose your appetite for supper that night. But then the other end, you get so invigorated, whether it be a puppy or a baby calf or, whatever. So, the positives outweigh the negatives.
There was something you had mentioned earlier about realizing how little control you have. Like, it was part of your story of coming into your own faith, but realizing so much of what you do in a farm or a garden, you realize, like, I can put a lot of work into this. I can put a lot of time into it. I can control every little variable I can think to control. And then hail comes and your garden's gone. And like, you couldn't have done anything to prevent it. It was just going to happen the way it was going to happen. So there is a little bit of a, I guess, more in your face reason to have faith, because there are the things you can control and you're responsible to be a good steward of those things to the extent at which you can. But then there's all these other things that are outside of your control, and being able to come to grips with the fact that I can't control all these things, and that's okay. That's a tough thing for a young man with a lot of hubris and energy to come into maturity and realize, okay, slow this down a little bit and be okay with it not going perfectly and adapt as you need to.
Yeah, and factor in pride with a young man at the same time,
Right.
or a very driven young lady, and pride can really spice that pot up pretty quickly.
Yes, it can.
With that transition of life. Trying to remember where I was going to go with that, but yeah, having faith. Like I was saying earlier, my way really doesn't work, and his way works much better. And so when I lean on his ways, his understanding, then I just leave it up to him.
Yeah. Talk about your family and the business a little bit. Like when I came out to the farm a couple weeks ago, you realize really quickly that you and your own efforts are not going to be able to keep that thing going. Mm-mm. Especially not if a guy shows up that wants a tour. Like, you're going to be focused on me for the next couple hours. And we went and rode around in the mule and then came back, and your wife and your daughter are there in the barn, like drenched in sweat, getting after it, working. Mm-hmm. Talk about the importance of that being like a collaborative effort and what it adds to your professional pursuits to have your bride and your family be a part of it.
Yeah, it's a blessing for sure. That's one of God's finest blessings, to have, spend the days with those girls, loving a lot of the same things that I love, and they make it possible because starting an operation, not having any commercial loans to get going, we live by the Dave Ramsey approach. If we don't have money for it, we don't go buy it. And we don't borrow money from people. And that makes for tough times. Makes for real tough times when you're trying to start a new arm of your business, like a beef program with us recently, and having to take on that burden of buying your own feed, and rather than sending off to a commercial feedlot and getting them fattened for a fraction of the cost, half the price basically. But we're learning. I didn't have any business classes through college. I'm not a business guy, even though I'm in business. Kind of learned through trials and tribulations in the school of hard knocks, and making plenty of mistakes. Now that I don't do anything business unless it's got a CPA, a lawyer and an accountant right there with me to make sure that I don't fumble something. Mm-hmm. And been very blessed to be on the right side of all of that could have easily gone the wrong way for someone that didn't know what they're doing. But yeah, we're going to seek financing in the future, but for me, I've got to know that we can handle it and be sustainable with it before I just sink our future into it. Because being so vulnerable as a startup, if you will, if it doesn't prove itself to me, then why are we doing this? Because it's just going to take us into debt unless it's driven by God in some way. And this was taking us, straining us financially when we were going to the feed store, every other week and bringing back tons of feed at a time. Mm-hmm. We've pivoted some of our operation to alleviate some of that and gone a little bit more of a regenerative approach with introducing grass back to our cattle that are on finishing grain diets. We've seen positive with the cattle themselves and positive with our bottom line. There's a whole nother scientific subject of why we're doing that and why we avoided that to begin with and only doing certain feedstuffs. But we felt the strain, and that was a trial and tribulation. But it's proven to be good. And now we come out stronger than what we did. But we wouldn't have been able to do that if Megan and Kennedy weren't there side by side with me. And my son in West Texas has sacrificed his own for us to be able to complete this part of our operation, the last kind of final piece of the puzzle that we'd, dreamed about growing up and stuff. But, only the wealthy can afford to have this and, bear this type of financial, owning the cattle, having the land, and, raising a product to fruition to the way that we want to do it. That's not the least cost option. Mm-hmm. But we're making it work. We don't have hired people that come on and help us unless we're gone and need someone to feed for us. Mm-hmm. And so when we're working cattle, that's our crew. And when we're doing something, we're the crew. And so anyway, I'm very blessed and feel very fortunate that God put those two around me. And they allow me to be gone to go see to see Kane out in West Texas. They allow me to go help other people as well. And I've got some ideas for the future that, that hopefully our business will continue to grow slow and incrementally like it has, and feel like we're still on firm footing to where that we're able to do some other things that can help people even more, and be able to try to hire someone on. I believe that a farm operation I believe like people like Joel Salatin and follow people like him, Greg Judy. I mean, the list goes on about truly regenerative type people and people that see passing their operations down, passing the land down better than what it was, more fruitful than what it was without industry synthetics and non-natural applications. And, they say that a farming operation needs to sustain 3 incomes, and we're almost there. We're almost there. It's been the consulting side that has supported us to get to this point and been our financing. And so I owe a lot to that side of to our company and the clients, because without them, we couldn't have, built to what we have, to where we're able to sell meat and do what we do, sell genetics to other producers and bring to light and celebrate what we've been working on. Kind of off the grid without much marketing and whatnot. But yeah, they add a lot to it. They teach me daily what grace and patience is about. And you were talking, I was about to get into it a minute ago when you were talking about the family, but one of the trials and tribulations that went through us, it was a large growing pain for us, as we lost a pregnancy. And, it'll affect you, still affects you.
How long ago was that?
2 years ago, 3 years ago. But we learned that when you're going through that tough time, you don't have all the answers, that if you lean on your faith, God's grace will come afterwards. He blessed us with a little girl we named Grace because of that. And we're very thankful. And she's been a big part of my maturity as well, realizing it's not about me. I had such a prideful mindset, recently, thinking that it all hinged upon me, and it really doesn't. Every day I see how I'm really less and less important. And from a sustainability standpoint, that's good, because the other people that I lean on for advice and mentorship, I mean, it's a flaw of our business. If I go away tomorrow, death or disability, whatnot, we stay pretty vulnerable. The genetics will go on and keep breeding because they're at a certain level that they can continue to multiply for 20 years and not really go backwards. But it's the other side. And so, it teaches you to try to be as safe as you can, keep yourself self-guarded financially and whatnot. But you can find yourself so guarded and financially in your possessions that, it kind of can become meaningless. Yeah.
There is a line to walk there for sure.
I'm learning that there is a special blessing with giving away some of your stuff. If you produce a surplus, why sit there and call for top price for something that you have a surplus of? That can be part of your tithe as well.
Yeah. That's a good point. Hadn't considered that piece of it. Well, having spent a little bit of time with you and your family, we haven't spent a ton of time together, but I've had 2 occasions to come out to the ranch and get to talk to your bride and get to see your family interact. The thing that you're left with leaving your home, there's a level of warmth there and hospitality and life that exists there that is, for somebody that pays attention to that kind of thing, because that's just the way I'm wired, like it's instant. You walk in the house and like this family is in lockstep and you're doing things all together, which for whatever reason, like we were talking with Paul in the green room, that stuff shows through in the quality of the thing you're producing in a way that you really can't fully articulate. Because you loving your wife, her loving you in kind, being a part of the ranch operation, doing things with her daughter together with you, and like y'all being in lockstep on where your family unit is putting its energy and its attention, it comes through in the product. And I told you this before, but you sent me home with a couple things of meat just as like a sampler. You sent me with a pack of bacon from a pig that y'all raised. And the best bacon I've ever had in my life came from a little smokehouse in New Mexico that's no longer there, which is part of the folklore of it. Like, what makes it so good is you can't get it anymore. So it's always like the top of the food chain. But in putting that bacon on the griddle and feeding it to my family, I didn't tell them where it came from before they ate it, but all of them, wife, 2 boys, all made comments about like, this is the best bacon I've ever had.
Good.
It shows up in the product somehow, some way it shows up. So that's, man, there's a whole other trail of thought. I'd want to ask you questions about like consumer preference, because I know we talked about that a little bit, how that's changing, how some of the traditional feeding techniques now are, going to become less and less favorable is kind of what you're predicting over time. I'd like to spend more time talking about that, but I want to be respectful of your schedule, and we're already past our hour. So the last thing I'll end with, that you've already kind of touched on, but I'll bet you can hit it quickly. In a world full of negativity, a farmer has to find reasons for optimism in order to put in the kind of work that you're putting in every day, and the things you're putting your family through, and the stuff y'all are doing together as a team.
Yeah.
Where do you find your source for optimism? What makes you optimistic about the future based on the way that you see the world?
Yeah. There's a lot of negativity that you could latch on and go with. As I was saying earlier, I've been blessed to be able to see corners of the world that, the average American doesn't get to look at, or the average Texan doesn't get to look at, or maybe some of my family that'll never get to see, certain levels of poverty that you only see on certain documentaries, crime levels, targeted farm murders, things of that nature that have came to light in the last year. If you've been paying attention to politics in the U.S., that's all true. There's one country I've never slept on a farm that wasn't behind iron bars, so that at least, the intruders couldn't get that, that close to you. But not to get off in the weeds with that, the Lord has shown me some of the finer things of life as well, that are tangible and intangible. And like I was telling you earlier, when you let God's kingdom come, it comes, and it'll be all around you. And my hope, my faith, it's what I lean on dozens of times a day. When I saw the verse Paul wrote in Thessalonians, it says, pray continuously. I was like, how does a person pray continuously?
Yeah. So I have this little notebook that I carry with me everywhere I go. And when I got it, I wrote a verse in the front that I want to read. And it's 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, where it says, rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances.
For this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That's written in the front of my notebook.
It was the first verse I'd written in my office. I don't know if I've taken it in my office, but it's basically plywood. It's a plywood finished office that's kind of my man cave / office. And I with my Sharpie marker, just write verses as they move me, as it's pertinent in my life. That was the first one I wrote on there.
Is that right?
After our loss of our baby. And that was the prayer. I brought that up in the prayer at dinner that night. And that Bible verse has got me through some stuff. I'm a very blessed guy, and see more of my blessings and how I should have been more grateful more each day. But, you can be challenged in many different ways, mentally, physically, financially, or otherwise. And it's only through your faith in Jesus Christ, I can tell you, that's going to get you through stuff, because your way doesn't work. It doesn't. It has limits. And your way will always bring up your selfishness viewpoint. And, that's where we are today.
Yeah. Aaron, I'm glad to know you, man. It's like we talked about earlier, it's hard to make friendships in your 40s.
It is.
So I appreciate the introduction we got to each other, and the fact that you're right around the corner from me, and we're very similar in our thinking about how that operation should be run, and the things we're curious about are pretty well aligned. And just spending time around you and your family, man, it's been a pleasure.
Thank
So
you.
I appreciate your time coming in here and doing this, but I know this is against your grain.
Yeah.
You just did an hour and 15 minutes, man.
Yeah.
You crushed it. You crushed it. You did really well. But yeah, man, I'm happy to know you.
Likewise. Pleasure to meet your family as well. Beautiful family.
Yeah. We'll do it again. We'll get the families together. Thanks for making time, man.